Welcome back to the Morning News. It is 7:41 in the morning. A student at Toronto's Ryerson University still waiting this morning to find out whether or not he will be expelled for being part of a Facebook study group. First-year engineering student Chris Avenir was the administrator for the study group on the social networking site. The university says that participation in that site amounted to academic misconduct. He appeared before a faculty committee yesterday to plead his case. He has to wait now 5 days before they reveal his decision. And with reaction to the story, we're joined by Mark Fetterman, a professor from the U of T's Institute for Studies in Education. Good morning, Mark. Appreciate you coming in this morning. What's your first reaction when you heard this? Here's a guy conducting or even just administering a site on Facebook, and now he's facing expulsion.
Well, I was surprised because essentially he's being expelled for participating in a study group. And as far as I can recall, study groups have been around for as long as there have been students.
Now, apparently the professor in this particular course had warned the students that these problems, these things that they had to work on, they had to do it by themselves. So there was that warning up front. Does that not constitute then cheating in some manner when they're doing it together collaboratively on Facebook?
Well, the professor arranged the course so that each individual student got an individual problem set. So the idea of the student doing the problems independently was sort of set up in the way the professor made the assignment. The assignments themselves were individual. But in terms of doing the problems themselves versus getting assistance in how to approach the problem, which is the way study groups work, and the way I understand it worked in this Facebook group, this is something that I think is appropriate practice. I mean, when I started engineering school 35 years ago, a professor came along and even suggested that we do we work together in consortia, as he called it, and we hadn't thought of such a thing in first year. But really, when you're talking about the hard sciences, it's very rare, in fact almost impossible, that any student will be able to answer all the questions entirely by themselves. Education is about mutual learning.
Is this a question of Ryerson simply being behind the times and not up to date with the technology?
I think that's the case. Study groups exist at Ryerson. They have a room called the Dungeon. When they brought this online, I think the professor reacted to the simple equation that Facebook equals internet, internet equals cheating, and overreacted. Ryerson now is merely standing behind the professor in order to try to preserve their own integrity. But in doing so, I think they send a strong message that they are behind the times. They don't really care about the learning. It's all about the product.
But isn't there underlying here a bigger problem, and that is the usage of the internet, the usage of social networking sites like Facebook to kind of circumvent the rules of education?
Well, we have to think about what education's about. There's a huge focus traditionally on the end product, the final essay and so forth, and not on what education really should be about, and that is building knowledge and learning how to collaborate. Because if we're preparing students for the workplace, it's all about collaboration. It's all about the process. So a professor or instructor can develop their course and their evaluation to mark on process, not on the final product, and that way you preclude the ability to cheat.
What do you think Ryerson should do in this case?
In this case, I think Ryerson should admit that they overreacted. They may want to say that ensure that you don't give final solutions in study groups, support each other in process, and readmit Chris Avenir, reinstate his original mark of a B, and let this student get his engineering degree.
All right, Mark Fetterman is a professor at the Ontario Institute for Studies in Education. Great to have you here. Appreciate your perspective.